Drop off. I have a logistical question.
Yes.
How much new information are we going to learn today?
Unless you ask me a lot of very interesting questions, probably not. At least nothing that will be on the exam. Today is primarily about making sure you guys have information for the exam and also to have fudge. Oh wait,
So good.
have any of you guys not done the Scantron thing yet?
We did it in very badly.
Oh my god, I felt like an
That was the
idiot.
hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
That was harder than anything I've ever done ever.
Well,
It was
questions of
challenging,
that sort be
But my motivation was
No.
good.
I felt
I'm sure
bad.
I did slightly better than the first time, but I still have no.
Did I take this the first time? I don't remember ever doing
I also
that
don't.
before.
But
I mean, depending on when and how you started the class, maybe not, because
I did it because I took it over the summer online.
that'd be one reason.
It was a really long time ago that I started my physics journey.
I remember doing like a math thing.
yeah,
It was like, do you remember?
it was like, what is the
Oh my God.
commutative property?
Yeah.
Drop off. Do you want the homework?
Hmm?
Is it gonna matter?
I mean, it is A grade. I can give you an extension on it.
Do you have a grade calculator for this stuff?
I don't have one set up. I'm just really good at repeating the formula in my calculator.
Can I have the formula?
Yes, there it is.
Oh my
Oh,
god,
thank
I
you.
didn't even know somebody had already asked.
Well, it's partly due to the fact that the blue marker I was using is dying.
I'm gonna write that one.
And I will talk about that in a second. I forgot what I was about to look for. Someone asked something. I was going to look for something. I already forgot what it was.
She asked about her homework.
That. Thank you very much.
Do you upload our grades onto Brightspace,
No.
or do we need to?
They're in WebAssign, aren't they?
The
Yes.
homework and quiz grades are in WebAssign. I never actually figured out how to import foreign grades into WebAssign's gradebook. So I
So,
keep them
like-
all in a spreadsheet.
But like my quiz grades aren't the same as what they are on the website, I don't think, unless you change them.
Quiz grade?
Cause like yeah, I've like made a 0 on a quiz before and ended up with a 90 because the only thing I messed up was I like added instead of subtracted.
I should have updated all your WebAssign scores unless it didn't show you that.
It's out of 70?
Actually,
So-
yeah, you did. I'm sorry. You're right. Ignore me.
Okay, can you explain after the equal sign?
Yes. Sorry. I have 8 million things in my brain. I will absolutely help you with all of these. I just uno momento.
Out of 70.
Did he get back our most recent lab?
Yes.
What did we get?
100.
Okay, I don't need it. I just
Okay. At least to start, other than the not started for chapter 22, Madison has no zeros.
Great. I'm doing the chapter 22 homework right now. I also won't be, my feelings are not going to be hurt if you don't want to grade it.
Well, I mean, machine will grade it. I'm just going to make sure you can actually submit answers. Sometimes WebAssign is very rude.
How many labs were there?
9.
9 labs. Okay.
Normally we shoot for 10, but
4.
the planet is weird right now.
We're just gonna go with these 6 and hope the rest are somewhere in the ballpark.
I do have everyone's grades saved to a spreadsheet, so that particular homework is updated. Okay, so grades before the exam. There is a formula for figuring it out. The tests are 38% of your grade, quizzes are 5%, homework is 10%, labs are 17%. That means before the exam, there's a total of 70% of your score already tabulated, which hypothetically means if you have a 100 before the exam, you could not take the exam and still get a 70.
They'll tempt me with a good time.
Well, I've already worked out that if you have a 100 before the exam, you would only need a 67 on the exam to get an A in the class.
Okay.
Okay.
Which means do
Unfortunately, I
it
do
and
not
don't
have
leave
one.
anything blank.
True, I don't have 100. But,
I feel like you're pretty close.
so we had 2 tests,
Correct. So those
9 labs, and however many homeworks and quizzes are in what assigned.
It's 7 quizzes is what I know.
7.
that sounds right. 7 quizzes and 8 homeworks. Because there was not a quiz for waves. Yes.
When I was quarantined those 2 times and I did my labs online, do you have grades for those?
I will. If I do, if they're not currently in my grade book, they will be soon. I end up grading the paper stack and then moving on to a different task. So all the online ones will be graded, absolutely. That one just doing those, they will all be factored into your final grade. You will get those points. And I will tell you what the lab grade is. I just need to dig up all the emails and actually finish grading them. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Do you do minuses? Like A minus?
I don't do minuses, but I do pluses.
Okay, cool.
I will say, having not factored any missing grades in yet, you have a B lab average.
I have to be lab average?
Yes,
Okay.
ignoring those 2 labs entirely.
Okay.
I don't remember what I got on the first. Oh, here it is. Just getting in.
So, I have all your grades between this spreadsheet and WebAssign. So, and you should have most, if not all, of the information. It might just not all be compiled together, which is why if you email me, I will calculate your grade with you and make sure you know where you stand if you are interested in that information. People email me and I will frequently answer, what's my grade now before the exam? What do I need to make on the exam to get X grade? So, I've gotten very used to very quickly looking up data, spamming this into my calculator. Yes?
Really quick, the grade we calculate, with that equation, we just divide by 70 and that's our grade in class.
Right, that would be the decimal form of the percentage. Whatever this is, before the exam can only add up to 70%. Granted, if you got an A on everything, an extra point on the test, this number might be higher than 70. So, but if everything was a 100, it would be 70. You have to divide by 70 or multiply by 10 over 7. And that will give you a number representing your base average before the exam itself. Slightly different process. What I do to figure out what someone needs to say make an A, I take this number, I subtract it from 90, because 90 is the lowest grade to make an A. That would give me 20. 20 would be equal to the 30% of the course grade that is your exam times your exam score. So divide 20 by 0.3, and that gave me 67% on the exam needed to get an A in the class. So that is how I arrive at that information. I will still, if you email me, I will still do it for you because I have all the numbers in front of me, so it might be faster if I do it. But that is just where the number comes from.
Pop, could you tell me my lab average? I have no idea what the beginning was for. Lighting my phone.
You okay if I just say the number?
I don't hear all.
96. Actually, Michelle, I was looking at the wrong part of the spreadsheet. Your lab average is an A.
Minus?
Yes, I was looking at the wrong part of the spreadsheet.
Okay. Wait, do you have the number by chance?
If you're fine with me saying it out loud.
Yes, I am.
Currently, not factoring in the 2 that are online that I haven't mathed out yet, 95.
Thank you.
Well,
Question.
answer.
Spit it out.
What did we do wrong here for this?
Now, this I didn't count on for because several people had the same answer and I stopped factoring it after a while. Although this calculation is incorrect for total watts.
Okay, so what is right here? So
You can drop me just a little bit. Thanks.
So the series circuit. Right, so in series, they didn't all have a 3-volt voltage drop.
okay.
So I would have used, because there's 3 different forms of power formula. Since they did all have the same current in series, I would have used P equals IB. No, P equals I squared times R. That's it. Oh wait, actually, estimated total power. Yeah, you were asked for total power. Oh no, it was also power equals H1. Am I confused myself now? That does happen. I crossed off this one. So that must have been what I saw an issue with. For the total power, we would have needed to do the total voltage over the total resistance.
So not that.
Was it total? That should have been it. I don't think that's what you wrote in. That would have been. This is why I really need to make better notes in the moment. Wait, where did 782 come from? Why is it squared?
Because we had that wrong formula where the R was squared.
That shouldn't come up here, I don't think.
Was
That
it
was
not?
R as a radius, not R as a resistance. This was before that. Also, your units were wrong. This would have been milliwatts.
I don't know where that number came from.
Maybe that's all it was. Maybe it's just.
I just have a
units.
random number.
I mean, the number makes sense. Like I would expect that many milliwatts. So if nothing else, the unit was wrong. That was right. That mistake wouldn't have been worth that many points.
Where do you buy these?
I don't know.
The physics store?
I mean, there are
Is
literally
it a tramp? Oh no, it's not
physics
a trampoline.
suppliers. That one's looser than a trampoline spring.
That's what I was about to say. I was gonna ask if it was, and then I stretched it and was like, wait, no, it's not.
Okay. I can only see that one thing that I actually meaningfully marked off.
Okay,
So at
thank
the
you.
very least, I can. Is that just the units wouldn't have been worth 10 points?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we need to convert kilohertz to hertz?
Yes.
You know what's the best thing ever? Do you remember how Dr. Rodeker, said that he graded them out of 100, but then he graded them out of 140? Or, He said they were out of 140 and he graded them out of 100. So we had 40 extra points. That was really nice.
Okay.
I needed a 13 on his final to get an
13 total?
A. A 13%.
You do that just by writing, at least for me.
Just
you
write
do that-
down all the formulas and I'll get a 13.
You get more than a 13 for putting the right formula in. At least putting your name on it and having an answer for everything will probably get you at least a 10% with me. Even if you wrote
But
down
for the
once.
vast majority of that class, I was 100% convinced I was going to fail. Like,
Oh, definitely.
without question, I was like, this is where I go, this is it. And then I didn't go.
I felt
It
that way
wasn't
as a
it.
major.
Yeah. I've heard that's how physics is, though. You think it's just terrible and then it's not that bad.
Within my own major and grad school coursework, if ever I felt iffy about a test, like I finish it up, I feel like I did shaky and I'm nervous, that's when I do well. If a test ends and I feel great, I feel confident, I bombed it.
Yeah, that happened to me in chemistry last week.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can relate.
Are you done or did you have?
Okay,
And then last night at 2 in the morning.
scores exist, this is how I get my
didn't
grades.
read Jess, that's the
Is anyone in here a senior?
I know.
Okay.
what's this?
In that case, I think senior grades need to be, I need to have senior grades entered in by the 12th, which is, the exam will still be open on the 12th because there's still exams happening on that day. But if you're a senior, you need to have taken my exam prior to that so that I can have it graded by the 12th.
Fair
So
enough.
keep that one in mind.
Is this one, like, once you start it, do you have 5 hours like the normal test, or is it 3 hours, because that's like PC's final policy?
6 hours.
That's what I wrote down. I wrote down 6 hours. I know you said that at some point.
It's longer than a test, but it's also supposed to be harder than a test, so less time per question, but still enough time to email me questions
Okay.
and to account for academic accommodations.
Is everyone that was in this class at the beginning still in this class?
I have had no one drop. I
Okay,
just
I was just
usually
making sure.
don't show up.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I had a class this semester where I was one of 2 people.
One of my sections is 2 people.
Really? And the other student had tennis all the time, so a lot of times it was just me.
Oops.
French.
Did you learn a lot? Did it work?
No?
Oops.
It was just really awkward.
And that's fair.
It was with Dion.
Okay.
Why for number 2 on the homework did we use this theme
And
line?
you know he has a really big accent.
For which part?
I don't know him. I
Number
am friends
2,
with,
talking about an AM radio broadcasting.
who was here, like, my
She
freshman
was
year.
radio waves travel at light
Well,
speed.
he like is from
All electromagnetic radiation travels at light speed.
Congo. And one day it was just us, and I was like, "Where are you from?" And he was like, "Illinois," and I was like, "Oh my god!" He was like, "I'm just kidding. I'm from the Congo," and I was like, "Okay," I felt really bad.
Yeah, all of my, so I went to a language minor in high school, and I did French. And I did not have a French person teaching me French until I came to college.
But with my French
My
teacher
high
in high
school
school was
Spanish teacher was
Japanese.
Polish.
See, doesn't that make perfect sense?
No, I had
Polish descent, Spanish major.
I had a teacher from the Congo, and I had a teacher from the Ivory Coast.
I just did a
Both
project
of
on
them
it.
were very dark skinned, and when I asked them what the word for sunburn was in French, they told me it did not exist. There was no such thing.
Okay.
I know that's false.
That's
Thank
actually
you.
so funny.
Unless they don't have a word for it because they just scream in pain unintelligibly.
They just, I think it's just, that wasn't something that they experienced, so they didn't
That
have a word
is
that they
actually
used for it.
hilarious. I can't imagine it gets used too much in the Congo. But no, my teacher was from Japan. And she was my French teacher.
I also took Japanese. That was, I went to language minor middle school through. So I did Japanese in middle school and
Are
then
you
French
like
in high
fluent?
school. No, I can sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes. and I can tell you that it is partly cloudy. That is the extent of my Japanese. French, I'm much better. I did like 7 years of that, so
Are you fluent in French?
I'm not fluent, but I can manage.
My first grade school, K through second, taught us Japanese instead of Spanish. And then I watched a whole lot of anime as a kid.
Oh, well, that probably helped.
That helps.
So
My brother likes
I'm
anime. He
familiar
wants
with how
to
the
learn
language
Japanese.
works more so than I am any vocabulary, but my accent's not bad if you give me exactly what to say.
There you go. Yeah, that's my thing, like vocabulary words. I can structure the sentence for you, I just don't know what the words mean.
Our substitute for my French class, he was from Cameroon, and he was 7'4". He was humongous. He played basketball at College of Charleston, which is why he was in South Carolina. But he spoke 12 languages. His name was Mr. Kanimba. He was so cool. He spoke Japanese, Chinese, French, Spanish, English, German, every language that you could think of, he spoke. And he was just the coolest man, and he was so tall, and you had to talk to him like this. And his voice was really, really, really good.
Call that a renaissance man.
He was so cool. Like, I just loved him.
Okay. And an attempt to further at least a little bit of data talking. Last day of class today, reading day is Thursday, exam will open on Friday. It will run until Wednesday, but if you're a senior, you need to take it before Wednesday. 210 points worth of questions graded out of 200. Same as tests, send me in your work. I'll grade mostly on the work, and I'll reply to you with your score and also a brief summary of what on each question were reasons for points are.
Thank you for responding so fast on this last one.
I'm always just,
I was in awe.
it's simple.
Please remember, to send in your work. You will
Please
not
send
do
your work.
well.
Please send your work. Please send your work.
Do people not?
Me, it's me.
Oh.
I didn't send in my work. He was like, are you gonna send me your work? I can't find the email. You might be stuck with a 68 if I don't get it. And I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. Here you go.
Has anyone not?
There's a
Like,
lot of production.
other than that?
I've had students forget to send it. Usually when I remind them, they send it pretty quick.
Nobody's ever been like, nah.
No one's ever been that. In terms of studying for the exam, there is a list of topics on Brightspace. If it's not on this list, it won't be on the exam.
Can we
Sorry.
actually continue?
This contains the list for the first test, list from the second test, and also there will be some brief questions added on from the last week or two of light and waves material. Again, we did do a whole lot of math with that, so it won't be a huge component, just some concept questions present. This list is on Brightspace, as is a bunch of practice questions for you to peruse and work on at your leisure. An answer key for these will be up by reading day at the latest. I have many things to do, but I'm making it a policy to have that up by reading day. And as my usual policy is to try to make the practice stuff at the very least longer than the actual exam so that you get more practice. So do not let the length of this scare you. I'm just trying to make sure that I cover all my bases. There's also some concept questions on the front just for review's sake. The answer key will have the answers to those too, but I'm not going to handwrite them because then no one can read them.
At least you're a self-aware man.
I figure you can't work on your flaws unless you're aware you have them.
I finished my homework.
Hooray!
Can we go through the first 2 pages of the thing and just what they are?
The
The
formula sheet?
equations? Yes.
Sure. I'm
I'm
also,
just overwhelmed by them.
well, that's fair. And the department uses the same formula sheets forever. So they're probably in need of updating and contain a lot of things that we haven't talked about this semester because time and etc.
Can you
This
tell us
is
what
the
to
normal
cross out?
equation
That'll make me
sheet,
feel
not the
better.
world crisis equation sheet. What was your question? Sorry.
If you can tell us which ones we don't need, so I can cross them out, that would also be all.
Okay. Thermodynamics, that's all useful. More thermodynamics, that's all useful. Electric field, don't need this one. And I don't think this constant will come up either, so these two can go. Electrical energy and capacitance. Don't need this third one. Voltage equals KR times Q over R. That's not a thing. Fourth one can stay. I can't read on the board at the moment. That fifth one says energy in a capacitor, but I don't have those constants to hand. So fifth one can go. These two are total capacitance in series and parallel. They are fine. Next one is safe. The next one, sorry, keep the next one, although.
What is that one?
That is energy stored inside of a capacitor. And let's see. I'm going to write it more clearly on the board because I only can tell what it says because I've used it before. It's really blurry up here. Potential energy inside of a capacitor is equal to 1/2 times the charge of that capacitor times the voltage across that capacitor. Alternatively, 1/2 times the capacitor's capacitance times its voltage squared. Alternatively, again, I think that's Q squared over 2 times capacitance. Yes, that is the potential energy sealed within a capacitor.
Wait, what is that backwards? Is that a Q or a backwards key on the next page at the beginning?
This?
At the end of that, the end of it. Same formula.
Oh. One sec.
NAVAQ/backwards B.
That is a V with a subscript of D followed by a Q.
Yeah, what's that?
That's not anything I've ever talked about with you guys, I don't think.
So may I cross it out?
You may. Yeah, VD is drift velocity, which we didn't have time for.
I'm sorry, where? The top of the next page, that weird thing.
The I one.
Yeah.
Top of page 2. This one's dead. The next two are how to calculate the resistance of an object. Those are still valid.
What is the loopy shape is density, right? Or
Not in this particular case. I'd say that loopy P, the lowercase rho, is one of the most commonly used Greek letters for different things in physics.
okay, what is it here?
Here it is resistivity constant.
Okay.
But sadly, rho, without any alterations, is also used as density and also used as momentum.
Okay.
I don't know why. We've already robbed every other alphabet in Europe. We couldn't have found another one for a different symbol.
Okay, what is the little E under the Ohm's law one? It's like a little,
This?
yeah. No, no.
Good question.
The delta V equals little squiggle E minus IR.
Oh, that's another way of okay, so this is not shorthand I like to use because I think it is inconsistent. This little e, or a Greek letter that looks like an E, is another common variable for voltage or electrical potential. We usually refer to voltage itself as the difference in potential between point A and point B. This symbol for electrical potential refers to like the total potential in a zone as opposed to the change in potential from one zone to another. Like we call it a 3-volt battery because there's 3 volts difference of potential from one side to the other. So this formula is just a different way of finding the difference in potential between two spots, because the first variable is the potential itself in one spot minus current times resistance would be the potential in a different spot. But we're not going to use that formula.
What is the Q charging and discharging? Do we need those?
You do not. These two are null.
What about the things under them? Useful identities?
Yeah, that's instructions on how to use and break apart natural logarithms, which is generally
keep it
useful
so
math,
fun.
but I don't think any of the formulas we actually use have natural logs in them. So you shouldn't need them.
Okay, what about the solenoid?
What is the solenoid? Like, what shape is that?
It's like a coil thing.
Yes, it's essentially you remember the copper coils that we put magnets through?
Yes.
That's a solenoid.
Interesting.
There's other configurations, and sometimes that word gets used for radically different things that accomplish the same purpose, but that's the common understanding of a solenoid. Magnetic fields, all of these work, although the last two, magnetic field made by a loop and magnetic field made by a solenoid, won't come up. If I ever ask you magnetic field being produced by a wire, it's just going to be a straight wire. Pretty sure you can skip all of induction. And I think all of circuits too. Yes, that's inductor circuits. Cross out all of the circuits. Cat circuits and RLC circuits. That's all null. As for optics, most of this we can get rid of. The one thing that might be useful to understand is the C equals blank equals 2.99 times 10 to the 8th. This is just the speed of light.
If we use 3, will it still be right?
Yes, because that's within 100% and that's within what assigns tolerance. You don't really need this particular version. Looking at everything else in this section, none of it will really come up. So you could cross the whole section off and be fine, because I will make sure that the constant that is the speed of light will be listed elsewhere. This is just, it's written this way to show where the number came from, because no human was ever successfully able to take a stopwatch and measure the speed of light. It's not a measured variable. It's calculated based on the permittivity and permeability of free space. They researched the properties of the vacuum of space and figured out the top speed something can travel through them. And that's where the speed of light variable came from.
What is U of a particle?
Energy,
Why is it
internal energy. U is internal energy most of the time. It's a big capital U.
Okay, can you go over when to use each of the E equations?
You're gonna need to be more
The
specific.
2 different E field equations?
Up here?
Yeah, like when to use the F over Q.
Oh, yes. Good question. Okay. E field. Dead marker is dead. And teacher can't throw. Q test, F over Q test, or K times Q source over R squared. Okay. So, the second part, the K times Q source over R squared, this version is if you know what is making the E field. You know the source of the E field. Say we have a proton, it's a proton, so we know its charge, and we want to know what the E field strength is a certain distance away from it. So the value of Q source would be the charge of the object making the E field, and the radius would be the distance between that object and the spot we care about. The other version is from a different object's perspective of the same field. Say we drop an electron into the field being made by that proton. This electron has its own charge, and this is a test charge that we are dropping into a field in order to test the field. So we put this electron here to see what's going on in this region of space. We know the charge of this particle, and then after we drop it, there is some force acting on it. It's
How
going
can
to
you
get pulled
measure
back.
that?
Short answer, lasers.
So it'll give you the force, and it'll give you the test charge?
Correct.
Will it say this is a test charge, or no?
It'll probably say in terms of yes, a test charge is dropped into into an electric field. The test charge is this much, and as a result of this, a force of blank is exerted on the test charge. What is the E field in this area?
And what's the units of E field? Newton?
Newtons per coulomb. Newtons N divided by C.
So what if it's like there are these charges, what's the E field at this spot? That's not one of the charges.
In that case, you don't know, like because I know I've asked questions like this before. You got charge 1, charge 2, charge 3, and you want to know the E field here.
Right.
Okay. There's currently no test charge there. There's no force being exerted on anything in this spot. So this part's dead. Instead, it would be in terms of the E field from this object at that spot, this object at that spot, and from this object at that spot, all added together.
So you'd find it 3 times and then add them together.
Do you have to add
Yes.
it like vectors or just add it?
It's vectors.
That's kind of weird.
So do you have to make a triangle?
At least for, yes. The way that I've drawn this, you would need to divide this E field up into X, Y components, add the X to this one, add the Y to this one.
And then make the triangle?
No.
Ultimately, yes. Like the way that I've drawn this, the net E field should point this way.
Right. Okay, so you would break that one up, add the X to that one, add the Y to that one, and then be like X, Y, and you're looking for that?
Correct.
Okay. Alright, that makes sense.
And then, once you've determined that E field, if the problem says, now we're going to put a proton there, what force will happen? Well, we now have a test charge in that spot, and we just figured out the E field in that spot. We can figure out the force on that proton. You can also do all of that backwards.
Ta-da!
I get the repeated impression, and this is, if I'm correct, if this is a true thing for you, it's a valid opinion slash need. The E fields and the M fields feel like the stickiest points that we go over, just given the fact that you literally cannot see them, and it has to be reduced to fictional arrows on a flat surface.
E-field confuses me the most.
That's fair. Because as a kid, you're told what a magnet does. E-fields don't come up much.
Okay, can you go over that? We need that whole thing.
Yes. Yes, I
Can you
can.
know what they all mean?
I'm going to put it bigger on the board. Sorry. I'm going to write it larger on the board because this is tiny. Those are formulas. Those are how you calculate rate of thermal conduction through an object. The rate at which thermal energy will travel through something to the other side. The generalized SI formula is thermal power, the rate at which thermal energy flows, is equal to a constant K, which represents what the material the object is made of, times the surface area of that object, times the temperature difference between the hot side and the cold side, divided by the length, the distance the thermal energy has to travel through physically.
Wait, K is a constant.
K is a constant that depends on what the object is made of. Does this formula sheet have tables on it? It doesn't.
So it'll give us that.
Yes.
And then A is the area
Yes. So,
of what?
great question. I'd say like the most common version of this type of question that I have asked and will continue to ask is like a brick wall or the wall of a building. Maybe occasionally made of brick, sometimes made of wood. I will always tell you what it's made of and give you a chart of ours. Say this is the wall of your house. The outside temperature gets up to a sweaty, uncomfortable 80 Fahrenheit these days, which I'm going to convert to Celsius real quick for simplicity's sake. Okay, 30 Celsius is real bad, but we're just going to roll with it for right now. This is outside. This is uncomfortable. This is inside. We like this. And there's a wall separating the cold away from the hot. The area is the literal length times width surface area of this wall. Because the bigger the wall is, the more room there is for thermal energy to get through it. Every single square inch of this is another square inch thermal energy can travel out through. It's another square inch that the hot wind can barrage it from. So the A is the literal length times width. The L is the wall's depth, its thickness, the distance that the heat actually has to travel through in a straight line. More area gives it more lanes, but a bigger L means the highway is longer. So it takes more time to get through.
So what about the next version with the sigma on the bottom?
Okay. This version of the formula is for one layer of one material. Most solid building walls are not just one material, so there's a slightly different version for combining them. E equals A times delta T over sigma
Okay, so that's
R.
when you put, it'll have the chart and it'll be like air, glass,
Correct.
wood. And you add up all those and put them on the bottom?
Yes. So if you have multiple layers, like, you know, brick and wood and air and fiberglass, etc., for each of those layers, divide its length by its K. That becomes its R. You want to add up the R of every single layer together, put it there, and then proceed.
Okay.
And on both WebAssign and in the textbook that our WebAssign is based on, gave a new chart listing commonly used R's in the construction industry, but using imperial units of like feet and Fahrenheit. It would give pre-existing R's already calculated based on the material and how thick it was. And for that type of question, it would say like 2 inches of fiberglass, 1 inch of dead air. Find those entries, just add them together and plug them into the R.
I think I'm good now.
Okay.
I think that's what I need.
Any other questions right now?
What does mu mean again in magnetic field?
Oh, magnetic field.
Great question.
Great question. One sec. Apparently I need to see the formula to have an opinion. Oh, you mean here?
Yeah.
Okay. This formula sheet,
That's a constant, isn't it?
remember the formula for torque that we were using to describe electric motors? The torque that makes the motor, the coil spin inside the motor? The full formula was torque equals current times area times perpendicular field times number of loops. This is the formula that I teach. But a lot of textbooks, including WebAssign and the book our WebAssign uses, splits this up into two formulas. They have decided that torque should equal mu times magnetic field, and you have to calculate the mu for every single motor, and that is equal to the current times its area times its number of loops. They just took the formula and broke it in half. I don't know why.
So, current times area times magnetic field times number of loops.
Yes.
But if they give you a mu, you use the top one. Because we had some on website that gave you a mu value.
They did. That's. Yes.
So you just multiply it by the magnetic field.
Correct. I don't feel the need to separate them like this, but apparently the rest of the industry does.
So what is it, but in the magnetic field of a wire, mu is a constant?
Yes.
Why would they do that?
Because we ran out of letters a long time ago, and the
Can they make
Department of
new
Weights and
letters?
Measures just lets us deal with it.
There are multiple
And in
alphabets
the same,
Correct.
things
Right.
too. They're in the same, like,
We've been using the Latin alphabet, we pilfered the Greek alphabet. I mean, if you wanted to stick to Greater Eurasia, we could rob Cyrillic next.
the Arabic, Hebrew.
There's tons of things we could borrow. And yet we keep using the same ones over and over again.
Literally in the same category. They're both in magnetic fields.
Yes,
It's root of them.
it is very root of them. Mu subscript 0, I think, is 4 pi times 10 to the negative 7th.
What if we started using upside down letters?
Yes, although only some of them would be useful.
Like not like an H, but like an upside down A. Yeah.
B's unchanged, C's unchanged, D's unchanged,
Backwards
B's
B.
unchanged.
Backwards B, backwards C.
Backwards C, backwards D, backwards E, upside down F.
Backwards F.
Oh, there's so many
See, look at
possibilities.
all these options that we could be using.
I think we need a physics conference and to suggest it.
I think there is an international, like, Congress of weights and measures and things who decides on things like this.
Every new variable, constant thing will be a version of an English letter, flipped or rotated. Ooh, sideways A?
That looks like angle.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
might
well,
be
it's better
your
than having
edges.
57 A's.
You
rather
guys
have
know
that.
a unit of length angstrom?
Yeah, with the circle on the top.
Yeah. I feel like that one they just made up.
Well,
We
see, and
added
it
some
works.
accents,
Because at least I know, every time I see that, I know it's an angstrom. What if we started putting accents?
Most
Like
letters are made up also.
Yes,
dot,
all
dot.
letters in language were made up by humans, which inherently makes them flawed and fallible.
Did y'all used to
Yes.
make up languages when you were little and you would like write out the alphabet and then write out your symbols and then you would
Yes.
write notes and you'd give someone the key? I thought I was a pretty genius, bro. I was like, I'm gonna be in the CIA. Look
I
at
used to
me.
call my sister a Rezzle. That's loser backwards. And my mom couldn't figure it out. It made
Rezzle?
my sister really upset. And we used it for a really long time, and my dad forced us to tell him what it meant. And we told him it was loser backwards, and he just laughed with us. So we still
I
call
think
her
you get
Rezzle.
points for creativity.
Well, unless you spelled it for them, that would not be super obvious.
We were also like 8.
Yeah.
So like, who talks the backwards math? Nobody.
I mean, I thought I was a genius when I finally figured out how to use Pig Latin.
I never got into the Pig Latin thing. It didn't come very easily to me.
We could do that instead of letters. Big Latin letters.
Pig Latin letters are Latin letters.
Also, I feel like there are more symbols and shapes we could be using. Like, what about a paw print? We could
Star.
use a paw print. Stars.
I don't know
Smiley
that word you
face.
just said.
Paw print?
Oh, paw print.
Like
Yeah.
Blue's Clues.
My
Yeah.
ears don't work so great. Okay. Within this very
Dollar
building,
sign?
someone tried to come up with a new unit and symbol. I was probably like a junior or a senior physicist here, and one of my classmates was telling the story of what was it? I forget the man's name. Shoot. The story's ruined, I can't remember his name. Okay, for some reason the word in my head is Morley. That can't be his name, but that's the name in my head, so we're just gonna roll with it. This student named Morley, for the case of this version of the story, got famous for like working on the homework. The answer was 3, and he kept getting like 1.5, so he said, all right, and now we're just going to multiply by 2, and then we get the correct answer. Someone asks, well, where did the 2 come from? And Morley says, I needed the 2 there to make the answer correct. So, the Morley constant was invented. The Morley
Is it 2?
constant is whatever you need to multiply by to get the correct answer.
Oh, I love it.
That's amazing.
And Morley was a lacrosse player. So these are crossed lacrosse sticks.
Wow. So not all lacrosse players need lacrosse.
Did you ever read the children's book? It's called Prindle or Frindle.
My friend said it's Brindle.
Sorry, hearing Prindle just sent me back to Sweet Life of Zach and Cody.
Same.
It's a Brindle.
Would you
Do
like
you mean
am
the
or
PR in
theme?
Brindle?
But yeah, Frindle, because the kids just like made up a new name, a new word.
Oh yeah, there was a big controversy in the story about inventing a new word for pen, I think.
Yes.
Why'd they need a new word for pen?
I think because
As
it
a
was a
student
fifth
was
grade
bored.
boy, he wanted to be a fifth grade boy.
It's gonna bother me until I remember what this guy's name actually was.
Look at all the old rosters.
His name was Rendell.
And he was a friend to us all.
What year was he? Do you know?
Yeah, I just checked.
He would have
Me and Jess
graduated
are the
before I
only
was
two
a
that have
student,
photos.
so class of 2010 at the latest.
Did you have your face?
Oh no,
Rosh, are you making your
That's
doctorate?
my slide.
I'd like one. I would like to be Doc Hoff one day.
Wait, did PCM have men's lacrosse?
Yeah.
Yes.
They
Okay.
got kicked off campus after they threw the other frog that used to be.
Yeah, they
like,
stole the
flying
frog.
into the
There was a bunch of
That's
repeated
really-
Yeah,
controversies.
there was some other stuff too. Don't you think that if you're an MD PhD, you should be doctor or something?
MV PhD.
MD PhD. Like if
Oh.
you get your MD PhD, I think you should be like Dr. Rizzo.
Fun
They
thing
need to
about
make up
that.
something higher than
My
Double
neighbors
doctors.
in high school were the Doctor family. Their last name was Doctor.
Nuh-uh.
And-
Doctor.
Well, she was actually a nurse.
Dr. RN.
Nurse Doctor.
Nurse Doctor. Hi, my name is Nurse Doctor. That's so funny.
I don't ever.
But if she was a doctor, she could be Doctor.
Correct.
I don't ever want to get my MD and PhD, so I don't have to worry about that. So
No, I don't either. I just think you should. That's a lot of work, so you should be a double doctor.
I think I should just collect all of the degrees. Like, I'll go back and get an associate's, I don't know, like electrical engineering or something.
Gotta catch
And
'em
then
all.
I'll get a master's. And
So then you can have a bunch of letters
Yes,
in your
and then
name.
I'll be an MD, and then I'll get a PhD. And
Don't forget law degree so you can add Esquire on the
that's
end.
right.
Esquire.
I want my tombstone to look like alphabet soup.
You need to forge a British birth certificate and get knighted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can also buy like a square foot
Yeah, you
of
can
land and
buy
be a
a-
lady.
You can buy a square foot of land in Scotland and be a lord or a lady.
Correct.
My brother did that.
Lady
So,
Doctor
are you technically nobility then?
Am I? You know what? That's a good question. What is the sister of a lord?
You know, I'm 16 generations off from Queen Victoria, and I think I should get a castle for that. That seems close
All you
to
have to
me.
do is,
I
I
know
think
it's
Scot-
not close, but it feels close.
in several places in Europe, all you have to do to get a castle is fill out an application and a business plan about how you will keep up the castle and basically use it as a tourist attraction. And as long as it gets approved, they will give you a castle that you become groundskeeper of.
What? I want a castle.
Move
Princess
to Europe.
Dr. Paris.
We don't really have castles here.
So, you know how in SpongeBob, like, Patrick says he's Mr. Doctor Professor Patrick? So, like, in France, you're, like, in French, you're Mr. Doctor something. Like, when you have, like, degrees. And so,
Have a good day.
Dr. Kylie, I was like, Mr. Dr.
Talk yourself
Professor
anything else if you
Kylie,
like
and then
it.
I was like, dude, I could have said Mr. Dr. Professor Patrick because his first name is Patrick,
When is
and
that?
I missed the opportunity.
Is it called?
That is a Saturday. I don't know.
Look up the person with the most
Those degrees.
degrees, or like
Completely slipped my mind.
whatever that word.
Not
is.
sure.
Fair
Letters.
enough.
Person with
Erica,
the
hi.
letters after the name.
Bye. Thanks for
Okay.
teaching me physics and not killing me.
I Never
Benjamin
wanted to
Bradley
kill you.
Granger, born in 1975.
have a good day.
Actually,
Why
because
can't
there
I
are
find
14
the old
degrees,
roster
it seems to
of
be the
men's
second
lacrosse
most credentialed
Ah.
person in the world.
Chambers!
There we
It
go.
was the Chambers constant. His last name was Chambers.
Okay, look up person with the most letters after their name.
I mean, this
Well,
dude
if
has
it's just a
30
PhD,
degrees.
if it's just 30 PhDs though, he'd still just be a PhD.
I'm pretty sure Caesar could have just said, I have every title, and they would just have to listen.
Yes, his greatest achievement was being salad.
He became chopped salad.
He did.
Oh, Caesar salad is so good.
Yes. I just had that conversation last night.
What day are you getting married?
June